In this video, we will cover the steps required to begin building an eForm. To start building your application's eForms, you must first create and define your application and its process. For a complete tutorial on this, please refer to our Building Your First Application video. You can find a link to it located in the Recommended Videos section. This video picks up where the Building Your First Application video leaves off. When the eForm Builder screen opens, it will present you with the Form Settings window. The Form Settings window lets you configure the common settings for your eForm, and it has the following tabs. The General tab specifies the basic configuration for your form, such as Form Title. This is where you set the title text for your form by entering it in the text box. Form Title Style. This is where you set the size of the title for your form. Clicking on the Select box will display a drop-down list giving you these options: small, medium, large, and extra large. And the Form Title Alignment specifies the position of the title on your form. Clicking on the Select box will display a drop-down list giving you these options. Left displays the form title on the left side. Center will center your form title, and right will display the form title on the right side. The Controls tab specifies the configuration of the controls for your eForm, such as Label Position. This specifies the position of the text label and how it shows on the form for a control. Clicking on the Select box will display a drop-down list giving you these options. Top. This sets the label to be at the top of the container, and Left specifies the position of the label to be at the left of the container. Tab Key Orientation specifies the direction form controls are selected when a user presses the Tab key. The accepted values are horizontal, which moves the cursor horizontally from left to right when the Tab key is used, or vertical, which moves the cursor vertically from top to bottom when the Tab key is used. The Appearance tab specifies the look and feel of your form, with such features as the font family, which specifies the font family to use for the input text and label. Font size specifies the default size for the input text and labels used on your form. Font style, which specifies the style of the font for the input text and label by setting these values. Bold, which shows the input text and label in bold. Underline will show the label underlined. And italic, which shows the label in italics. Background color sets the background color used on your form. Clicking on the Select box will open the color palette where you can enter the hex color code or select a color from the color palette. Form Title Color allows you to set the foreground color for the title on your form. Clicking on the Select box will open the color palette where you can enter the hex color code or select a color from the color palette. Background Image. This allows you to add an image to your eForm by selecting from these options. Set Image allows you to specify the image used for your eForm. By clicking on this button, the Image Picker window will open, allowing you to select the background image. You can upload an image from a URL or your local file system. And Image Position. This specifies the position of the background image on your eForm. Clicking the Image Position button will open the Background Image Position window, allowing you to set the image size, repeat, and position settings. In the CSS class section, you can specify the CSS class that will be used for your eForm. In the Actions tab, you can configure the action buttons for your eForm. We have Show Submit button, Show Cancel button, Show Save button, Show Reset button, Show Print button, and Show Save as PDF button. By selecting these buttons, you can enable or disable how these actions will show on your form. To show a button on your eForm, check the checkbox next to the button you want to display. Uncheck the checkbox next to buttons you do not want to display. This will update your eForm in real time. For example, if you uncheck the Show Cancel button checkbox, it will remove the button from the eForm. Checking the checkbox again will add the Cancel button back onto your eForm. The text box to the right of the Show Button option displays the label of the button. To customize the button's label, click in the text box, delete the current label, and enter a new label. This will update the button label in real time and display the new label. The action button's position specifies the position of the action buttons on the eForm. with such positions as left to specify the action buttons to show to the left on your eForm with either a top or bottom placement, center to specify the action buttons showing in the center of your eForm with either a top or bottom placement, and right to specify that the action buttons show to the right on the eForm with either a top or bottom placement. URL on submit specifies the URL to send the form user to when the eForm is submitted. And URL on cancel specifies the URL to send a form user to when an eForm is canceled. The Advanced tab specifies the advanced settings for your eForm, such as cell padding to specify the space in pixels between the cell wall and the cell content. The default is 10 pixels. Row spacing specifies in pixels the space between the rows on the eForm. Show header to user form specifies if the eForm header shows when the eForm opens. Clicking on the select box will display a drop-down list giving you these options. Yes, this will show the header, and no, this will not show the header. Enable multiple languages on the eForm. This specifies if the form user can select a language from a list of available languages in the eForm. Checking the checkbox will let the form user select more than one language, and unchecking the checkbox will prevent the user from selecting more than one language. Allow user to switch form language specifies if the form user can change the language in the eForm. To enable this feature, the checkbox of the enabled multiple languages on the form must be checked. Then the checkbox Allow user to switch form language can be selected. Checking the checkbox will let a form user change the language in the eForm, and unchecking the checkbox will show the language in the eForm based on the form user's settings. Default language name. This specifies the default language to show on the eForm. To enable this feature, the checkbox Enable multiple languages on the form and Allow users to switch form language must first be checked. Then the default language name can be selected from the drop-down list if available. Show validation summary. This specifies whether the eForm shows all the validation messages. Checking the checkbox will show the summary of validation messages in the form preview or when the eForm opens. And unchecking the checkbox will prevent the summary of validation messages from showing. Ask confirmation on submit. This specifies a message that will ask for confirmation when a form user submits an eForm. Checking the checkbox will display a text box where you can specify the message to display when asking for this confirmation. Unchecking the checkbox will submit the eForm without a confirmation. Ask confirmation on save. This specifies to ask for confirmation when a form user saves an eForm. Checking the checkbox will display a text box where you would specify the message that will be displayed when asking for confirmation. Unchecking the checkbox will save the eForm without the need of a confirmation. Submit validation fail message. This specifies the validation message that shows when a form user submits an eForm that has validation errors. The message that is displayed is entered in the text box. And section validation fail message. This is for sections when using sequential navigation and specifies a validation message that shows when the form user submits an eForm that has validation errors in the form sections. The message that is displayed can be entered in this text box. The information covered in the form settings window is optional and not required to complete before building your eForm. The form settings can be left to their default values and the window closed. If the default values are chosen and the window closed, the form settings window can be reopened by clicking on Settings in the eForm Builder menu. This completes the review of the form settings window. With the form settings window closed, the eForm Builder screen will now be available to start designing and building your eForm. Your eForm Builder screen is divided into two columns, with your eForm Builder menu at the top, and the left column is where you find the toolbox, which contains the form controls that you will use to build your eForm. The following tabs are contained in this section. The Common Controls tab, which lists the basic and most common controls used when building an eForm, such as text boxes and buttons. The Advanced Controls tab lists controls that use advanced control formatting or functions. For example, to make sure an email is formatted properly, or that a phone number contains the right number of digits and is formatted according to the proper country. The Telerik Controls tab lists the controls made by Telerik and features controls from both common and advanced controls that function similar but with different styling. The right column is the canvas for your eForm. This is where you will drag and drop the form controls from the toolbox for building your eForm. This completes the review of how to start building an application's first eForm.